7 o'clock. I'm glad you're here on this final Wednesday of the year. Crowd's down a little bit. I guess some are out here or there. And some are sick, I know of. So we'll continue on tonight as we have been. We'll begin a word of prayer. And John Ross, would you lead us in prayer, please? Well, we'll conclude tonight talking about end-of-time events. And we looked at for several weeks about the premillennialism, how it was an era talking about the rapture and tribulation and the Antichrist and things of that nature. We also looked at the amillennial, which is the teaching of the Scriptures showing what will take place in the end, how Christ will return at any time, shout, and that'll be the end of it. And the judgment will take place. Last couple of weeks we've been looking at Matthew 24 and how some will use Matthew 24 in I say unscriptural way, but in a wrong way, anyway, in a wrong way to try to prove that it gives hints as to when Christ is going to return. And we saw where verse 34 is the key verse in chapter 24. Things that would take place for that generation, things that they would see. And we completed chapter 24 last week because in verse 35 through the end of the chapter, he is talking about the second coming when he will return. And tonight we're going to be in chapter 25 of Matthew because this is a continuation of what Christ started there in chapter 24. And he gives some parables, 3 parables concerning the second coming or end of time, to be prepared about this. And in these parables, especially the first 2, we need to take notice of who he is addressing. Who is he talking to? And he's not talking to the non-Christian in these parables. And he's not necessarily talking to the Christian, but he's talking to the Christian who is not prepared. And that's who he's speaking to in at least 2 of these parables. And he gives us some warning as to make sure that we don't fall into the category that these individuals fall into. And in verse 1, we have the parable of the 10 virgins. Now, we've heard it many times, how 5 were prepared and 5 were not. Here it says, "And the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept." Now these 10 ladies were all alike except for one thing. They were all virgins. They were each unmarried. They were all in attendance for this upcoming wedding. They each had lamps. They each had oil in their lamps. When the bridegroom arrived, each of them was sleeping. They were not ladies of the world. They were very obedient ladies. They were not immoral. They were not disobedient. They were not wicked. They were not hypocrites. They had a lot in common. Godly ladies. But they were all equal except for their preparation. 5 of them had not made preparation, and that's the only difference that we see in these 10 individuals here. No preparation. In verse 6 through 10, "And at midnight a cry was heard, Behold, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, lest there should not be enough for us and you. But go rather to those who sell and buy for yourself. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. So the five foolish wanted to borrow some oil, but the wise would not give it up. Because this wedding was too important for them to play around with this, to give away the oil they had, and then none of them would get to go in. So that was a problem. Give me some water. You see, there are some Christians who think they'll be able to ride into heaven on the coattails of others. And that's not going to take place. Each individual is going to have to give an account of how they have handled their salvation. And as we started this off, we have 10 ladies here representing Christians. All 10 were, but 5 were unprepared. And the door's open, but there's a time that was coming, in which the door is going to be shut. Thanks, sir. Each one has a dollar bill inside. Verse 11 to 13. Afterward, the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Surely I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. So they knock on the door after it's closed. The bridegroom is the one who says, no entry, no coming in. The other 5 who are in the house already, enjoying the ceremony, they had no say in that decision. If it had been left up to them, they probably would have said, oh, okay, I'll let you in. Come on in. I understand you just didn't plan right. But it wasn't left up to them. It was left up to the bridegroom. And he said no coming in. You know, there's got to be preparation when it comes to heaven. We just don't wait until the day it happens, the judgment day, and think, okay, I'm going to go in. Because I got friends who are faithful Christians. I got family members who are faithful Christians. I got heritage in my family. We go back year after year after year, generation after generation. That's not going to work. And some individuals may look at this and say, well, that seems awful harsh. You know, not to be given entrance over just a little bit of oil for these individuals. But the problem here was negligence. They just did not do as they were prepared, the way they should have been prepared. And even though we can't always be on watch, you know, thinking the Lord's going to come today, always be, you know, on watch, but we can be prepared for when that day comes. If a person is always on watch, it may drive an individual crazy, thinking, well, the day's today. It's going to happen today. Well, nobody knows, of course, but we can be prepared for that time. And make sure that we have enough faith that we will endure until the end. That's what we need to do. So this parable enforces that we always be ready and be prepared for the second coming. and make sure that we do not neglect this, thinking, well, I'll wait until close to the end of my life, and then I'll do right, and then I'll get right with my Lord. Well, you may not have that opportunity should the Lord come before then. Then we have a second parable, the parable of the talents. Verse 14, for the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability, and immediately he went on a journey. And he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5 talents. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. Each of these men, they were servants of the master. One was not. Just the 1 talent man, he wasn't some outcast somewhere. They all were servants. They all, from a Christian standpoint, they all were Christians. But 2 of them took serious what the Lord or master had given them to do. If you notice there in verse 15, to each according to his ability, the Lord, the master here, understood their abilities. He didn't overpower or give more to do than what he could do. He gave to the 5, to the second one 2, and to the one he gave 1. And again, the Lord gives us all abilities as well. And I think he expects us to use these abilities, these talents that he's given to us. The ones who are given 5, use them. To that one that's given just 1, use it. And of course, the master leaves. He does not say when he is going to return. Then in verse 19, the master returns. And after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received the 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you deliver to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You are faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. So the man with 5, the one with 2, they did something, and their master was very pleased with their efforts, what they did. Then verse 24. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you had not sown, gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talents in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy slave, you knew that I reap where I had not sown, and gather where I had not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, that at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So this one talent man, he was wicked and he was lazy. He did nothing with what was given to him. He could care less about what the master gave him to do. And he knew, just like the other two, that the master was going to return someday. And he may have been thinking, well, I'll dig it up at some point, then I'll do something with it. But he waited till it's too late. He could have been thinking that way. So, again, some have that thought, even today, of Christians. I'll do more as time comes. I'll be more active. I'll be more participant in activities. I'll do more, whatever it may be. But they often wait, and then it's too late. But one thing that he did here, this one talent man, mistake that he made, he looked upon the master as a man that was impossible to serve. He said he'll put a heavy burden on you. You can't do anything to please him. And that's how he looked at the master, thinking the way that he was thinking. I knew that you won't require of me things that I can never do. And that's just an excuse. And again, some individuals, Christians, could very well use that as an excuse. God is a hard man to please. He put, no matter what you do, it's never good enough. I can never be good enough to serve. I can never be good enough to be a Christian or be as faithful as I should be. And I'll do nothing. Some Christians could very well have that attitude about them. And this one talent man, if you noticed here, he blamed his master for not being able to make money with what was given to him. He blamed him. I knew you were this way. If you hadn't been this way, I would have done more. And that goes all the way back to Adam, when Adam blamed God for giving him Eve. How can we ever go about blaming God for our sin? It's your fault, God. If you hadn't put this in front of me, it wouldn't have happened. If you hadn't blessed me in this way, it wouldn't have happened. That's not going to work on Judgment Day. We may think that on Judgment Day we'll stand before God and whatever excuse we give, if we're found unfaithful, it's going to work. That's not going to work. So this third servant here, he had to find out the hard way. Then in 28 through 30, the master here says, therefore take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So God recognizes the faithful in their service, and God recognized here the unfaithful in his service. And he rewarded the good, and he punished evil, the wicked and lazy servant. So the second parable, again, different from the first, because the first 10 ladies are all equal, except for one thing. Well, these individuals here were given different responsibilities, and one wasted them. Don't waste what God's given to us. Don't waste it. It can cost you your salvation. And then verse 31, we have the judgment of the nations. And this is showing the judgment upon all of mankind, not just the Christians, but upon all of mankind. In verse 31, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. And he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Again, notice here who is doing the separating. It's the shepherd who is. Not the angels. The angels are there, but they're not doing any judgment. It's left here to the shepherd. He's going to be the one that will do the dividing. Just like it was the master with the talents. He did the judgment. Just like it was the bridegroom, the 10 ladies. He did the judgment. So again, judgment is going to be carried out by God. And we will have nothing to do with it as to who will and who won't be able to enter. 34. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. I was naked, you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, you came to me." Then the righteous will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?" So he starts with the faithful here. The Lord had rather reward than punish. He starts with the faithful. Well done. You're the sheep. You're the ones that did what was right. And they were doing these things for the right reason. They weren't doing these things just for recognition. And little did they realize that when they were helping others in the ways that they did, they were also doing for the Lord as well. So you have those who are prepared, doing what they were doing for the right reason. Then in verse 40, 44. And the king will answer and say to them, "Surely I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me." Then he will also say to those on the left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, you did not take me in. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, you did not visit me." Then they will answer him, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister to you?" The people that needed these things were before them all along. And they saw them. They just refused to do anything. You can't help but not see individuals in need, such as this. And they're right there before you. But they just refuse to do anything. It's not my place. Let somebody else do it. And that didn't work. 45 and 46. Then he will answer them, saying, "Surely I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into everlasting life, but the righteous into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." So the separation occurs. Everlasting punishment, it never ends. Eternal life, it never ends. They each had a choice, but they simply did not make the most of that choice. Now remember, the Lord is saying these things in the last week of his life, probably a Tuesday or Wednesday night, or Tuesday or Wednesday when he's teaching this, giving these instructions. And trying to get his disciples there ready for this, to be prepared for what awaited them when he would no longer be with them. For them to be prepared and make sure that they were ready when he did return the second time. So that's the gist of it. Any comment about this? Pretty simple observation, especially chapter 25 that we've heard many times, these three parables. All right, we'll end here. About time of the bell. We'll pick up with a new topic next week.